conversation about Kevin McKenzie's Swan Lake. Swan Lake was going to be performed at the Metropolitan Opera House between the dates of June 26th and July 4th of this year. And unfortunately, the dancers are not going to be able to perform. But I have them here, and I have the ballerinas who are performing for a conversation. And if you would go and introduce yourselves, I'm going to introduce myself first because it's age before beauty. And I'm Cynthia Harvey. I am the artistic director of American Ballet Theater's Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis School. I'm a former principal dancer with ABT, and I danced three versions at American Ballet Theater of Swan Lake. And I'd like to go around and have the wonderful ballerinas introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Shevchenko, and I'm a principal ballerina with American Ballet Theater.
Hello, my name is Devon Teuscher. I am also a principal dancer.
Hello, my name is Gillian Murphy. I'm a principal ballerina with American Ballet Theater.
Hello, my name is Isabella Boylston, and I'm a principal dancer with American Ballet Theater.
Hello, my name is He. I'm a principal dancer with American Ballet Theater.
I wondered if you girls, if you would have any personal anecdotes about time working with ABT and dancing in the production of Swan Lake. I'll just quickly say one of mine. My very first performance of Swan Lake, I had been rehearsing. It was with Ross Stretton, and he was dancing with the Joffrey Ballet, trying to get into ABT at the time. So I did the whole rehearsal period with no partner. And I had no idea what it was going to be like when it came to the performance. And it was at Kennedy Center as well. So I danced my first performance with him. And then the next day, I had to do Stand in the Wings, ready to go because Natasha Makarova hurt her calf. And I was told I might have to end up doing it with Mikhail Baryshnikov in the matinee. So it was a bit traumatic. And I think because of the traumatic aspect of it, it's a ballet that's still to this day, I hear the music and my stomach churns, but it's followed me everywhere. So I would love your personal anecdotes. I'm sure everybody has a story to tell.
Oh man, well, I feel like through the years that I've spent at American Ballet Theater, I've danced pretty much most of the roles that a ballerina can dance in this production, and most of them have been alongside Devon, and she was always my my partner in our Swan Lake adventures, and especially when we both had to dance pas de trois together, we would encourage each other and push each other along, because pas de trois can be so difficult and challenging and hard to get through, and you need that friend by your side to help you get through it. But I just remember we would always look at each other right before it started, and we would have our special crossbow moment where we would mimic what the prince was doing and have our own little joke. And we had some really good times. But as performing the lead, I was lucky to have gotten a lot of rehearsal for it. Actually, I didn't have to be thrown into this ballet. There were other ballets I was thrown into, but this one, I was so thankful to have been pretty well prepared with a good amount of rehearsal. And James Whiteside was my first partner, and he was extremely reliable and so fun to dance with. And I felt very secure in his hands and very at ease. So I'm grateful for him being my partner.
That's wonderful. Devon, on the tail of Christine's story, what have you got to add to that?
Oh gosh, we had so many fun times on stage, Christine and I. But yeah, I think just resonating what Christine said about kind of doing almost every role in the ballet when it comes to Swan Lake as a female, growing up through ABT, and then finally getting to do Odette Odile was a very surreal moment for me. I think it was one of those kind of moments I remember like bowing and thinking, wow, I've been standing at like the back of the corps, that last girl, for probably 7 years every show, and just watching the ballerina take that bow at the end of the night and being like, wow, I would love to do that one day. Like that was my dream. And so when that finally happened, it was very surreal to be like, this is now me standing in front. And then also I just had such an appreciation for all the girls that were behind me. And I felt like it's such a incredible ballet that like everyone, it takes so many people. And I have such an appreciation of the group effort that it takes, and it's not just about one individual. So I think that was a really big moment for me to recognize, like, oh, it takes everyone, and I've been there and now I'm here, and it's just a full circle moment for me. So
I felt very much the same because I was in the corps. Actually, I was the vision. That was the very first thing I did with ABT after I think I held the train for Sleeping Beauty, but the vision. So I feel exactly like you do. And having spent time in the corps, and you're standing there on the side and you hear the ballerinas come off after the solos and what they're going through. And it was intimidating a little bit. Gillian, what about you?
I was also the vision at first, and I had no idea what I was doing. They said, you know, go up those stairs. At a certain moment, the light will shine, flap, beg, weep. And I was like, whoa. And so I just moved as fast as I could. I was flapping, I was pleading, I was weeping. And then luckily, I think it was a dress rehearsal, because a couple of the women in the senior corps gave me some advice, and they were like, guess what, you can really like take your time. And they broke down how to do swan arms. And they said even a moment of stillness can be really powerful up there. And so I really ended up enjoying being the vision at first, and also being a peasant in the production before Kevin's production. There was a really fun peasant dance, and we did a whole bunch of grand jetés, and I had a blast. I also did a number of years of the pas de trois, jumping girl, which is killer, but can be fun, but it also surprisingly difficult, and big swans. And yeah, I also have that appreciation for everybody in the corps de ballet, from starting out as a 17-year-old in the company, not having any idea what I was doing, and just having those people behind me letting me know what was next, because I had like 2 rehearsals, to leading the whole Act 2 as Odette. It's a huge moment, and Odette, Odile were always dream roles, so to do that with my dream company, it's we could spend the whole hour just each talking about that. It's hard to explain what that feeling is, but happy to be in this company of gorgeous women right now talking about it.
Thanks, Gillian. Bella.
Okay, well, Jill, I love that you brought up that story, because when I first joined ABT, I got to do the vision, and you pulled me aside and you were like, do you need some assistance, some pointers? And I was like, yes. I was totally freaking out up there, just like spazzing out, basically.
I was trying to pay it forward, because that's exactly what I did.
You totally did. And that was so valuable. And also just to like, I don't know, do a little tribute to Gillian right now, because you were one of my favorite Odettes. And I think a lot of people perhaps like obviously know that you're going to crush Odile, because your fouettés are just like the best in the biz. But your Odette to me is one of the best. So
thank you so much.
Shout out to Jill. But I just love seeing the range of interpretations of all of the different casts at ABT. And I think that's truly unique about ABT is the diversity of backgrounds and styles, and that full range is really visible if you go and see the same ballet several nights a week. Another fun anecdote I have is when at the end of the ballet, Odette jumps off the cliff basically, and you land on a mattress, and I was so scared to do it for my debut. I had my dress rehearsal and I was terrified. And so Kevin volunteered himself to jump off first, and he literally went and like launched himself onto the mattress so that I could see that it was safe. And I don't know, I still hate doing that part, but
it's the landing. It's a little bit of a whiplash. Yeah. You have some wonderful story to tell us about your Swan Lakes? Anything exciting or funny?
Well, I have to start with Swan Lake is my favorite ballet.
Oh,
It became my favorite ballet after, it sounds strange, but growing up watching Gillian's DVD of Swan Lake of ABT, even though we're not, there isn't so much an age difference, but she was already a star when I was in the school. So anyway, so just get to dance Swan Lake, it was the most incredible thing for me. And one year, all the ballerinas somehow were out during the mid-season. So I ended up having to do 4 Swan Lake in a week. So that took away my love of Swan Lake for a little while. But it came back. It came back. It is still my favorite ballet. And as Bella mentioned, every ballerina does it differently. And that's a beauty of seeing ABT. So I love Swan Lake.
Yeah.
I'm sad that we don't get to do it this year.
Yeah. Do any of you, did you, when you learned it, did you find that the mime in Act 2, I used to love that part of it. It's so simple and it says everything you need to know, you know, the story, but learning how to exactly convey all the mime for me, maybe you'd probably done more with Alexi being in the company, you had more mime, we had so little. And I always found it beautifully poignant to be able to speak with my, without actually dancing, just the arms and conveying the story through expression. And I love that. Did anybody feel the same way? None?
Devon, I feel like you should talk about that because I feel like your mime, I remember watching you do that so many times and it's so clear and purposeful the way you do it.
But I think, I mean, I feel like I came back with that after being at the Royal because their sense of mime is very strong. And we didn't have Alexi in my day, so we didn't have the mime as such a strong aspect of the company work. But also in the story, there's a lot about the breaking of the spell. And I think that's a hugely potent theme here. You know, Odette herself embodies beauty and purity, but she can't shed her swan-like identity. And I feel like the psychology behind that part of the story is that real love liberates. But then with Siegfried, he's tempted, and also Siegfried in that 19th century, the idea of rescuing her really, I think, resonated with that period of time when they were writing the story or taking the story from another story. And that he's tempted by a sort of seductress who, and then in his mind, she's a perfect woman. So he's gone after perfection, which is an illusion anyway, so it serves him right. And it is through death then that Odette surrenders to their spiritual, he and she surrender to their spiritual love and fulfill their eternal pledge. Not all companies do that ending. Many companies do. I mean, in fact, one of the original Soviet Union ones where they cut off von Rothbart's arm and then everybody was fine. There's versions where she jumps to her death and Siegfried's left alone. I think at City Ballet, they do one where he's left in his own grief. There's so many different aspects to the story that I find really fascinating. But we can't talk about Swan Lake without talking about the fouettés. And one of the things I knew way back when, and it used to disturb me because that was not my favorite step or my best step, was that the ballet had been changed so many times over the years, and even music had been moved from one section to another. Maya Plisetskaya herself didn't do the fouetté, she did it at Piqué Manège. How is it that the fouetté turns have become so sacrosanct? And even people who struggle have to try to get through them when other parts of the ballet's total phrases are changed. So I want your opinion, and I'm going to go to Gillian first because I know that, Jill, you don't have problem with fouettés. What if you didn't have to do them? Would you choose still to do them?
If I didn't have to do them, would I choose to do them? I think if it's the type of step that would just ruin the experience for me completely, and I wasn't at least like 75% sure I'd get through them, then yeah, I don't think it's
But
worth
please say yes, Gillian. Please say yes.
I don't think it's worth it to do 32 fouettés if it's gonna just be a nerve-wracking experience, because I have seen dancers even from the beginning of the Black Swan, you can tell they're already worried about their fouettés, and that's not storytelling. It's not going to be a good technical moment or artistic experience for anybody. So no, they're not necessary. I think it's a tradition, and I think they are exciting. So if someone feels comfortable to do them, then I say go for it.
Pierina Legnani, the first ballerina who did Odette under Petit Pas, apparently that was her trick. She did it in every ballet. And apparently too, the audience used to count them out loud. So you would hear them going 1, 2, 3. So she asked to have them put into the ballet, and they thought, oh, this is great. This is going to be a trick forever. And so now we're left with this legacy. And now he's saying, oh, you spoke just now. You piped in. I want to know your opinion on this.
Well, if I were Gillian, I have no problem to say yes.
I'm the same.
With that question. But I think it became tradition of Swan Lake, of Black Swan, and that's the most celebrated moment. And when people think about Swan Lake, they think about fouettés. So if you're capable of doing it, which myself goes through a lot of struggle, physical and mental struggle, all at the same time. But when you finish third act, the feeling that you get, that you accomplish something that is so difficult, not just the fouetté itself, but the whole ballet. You still have one more act to go, but I think that fulfillment gives me excitement of the ballet, and that's what makes me love this ballet the most, even though it is very challenging step for me throughout the whole ballet, but I think it's worth it.
And you, Devon, you don't have problems turning, so I know you have no issues.
Yeah, personally, I mean, fouettés were literally the first dance step I learned in my kitchen. My sisters took me and taught me how to do a fouetté. So I actually love doing fouettés. I know that's weird, but I really enjoy it. But
okay,
also,
somebody's got to do it.
I've also just been thinking, the point of the fouetté, you have to think about what the point of the fouetté is.
Exactly.
It's more than just doing 32 turns. The whole point is you're whirling him into this frenzy. So whatever, even if you're doing 32 fouettés or not, whatever you choose to do, it's about the story that you're telling, right? This suddenly doesn't just become a technical feat. Yes, it is an incredible technical feat, but the point is that we're doing something there, and it becomes so much greater than just fouettés or not. It becomes do you accomplish this task that you've been set out to come and take over this man, and do you get that done or not? And however you get that done, fantastic. So that's my kind of opinion on that. I do them and I love to do them, but if you don't, it's about what you're doing.
Christine, I'm sure you've had no trouble with that. And do you have a personal preference between Odette and Odile?
Do I have a personal preference between Odette and Odile? I have to say, I really love Odette. Even though Odette is just, I find it harder than Odile for myself because there's just so much to it. There's endless things that I could talk about, just the purity, the vulnerability, finding that emotional depth with the character, which is just so difficult to find and to get it to look the right way and feel the right way. But there's just something so magical about Act 2, and especially during that White Swan Pas, when it's just you and your partner on stage and the audience is so quiet that you can barely hear a sound. And it's just you dancing to this amazingly beautiful music and trying to express yourself with the port de bras and the fluidity. I just think it's so magical.
I think I had a little hard time. I felt some of the choreography was incongruous to the character of Odette, because she appears at night to him And in theory, she's meant to be a woman. And yet, you know, the beautiful place where she turns around and goes to him and taps the shoulder, and then we do the arabesque into the penché. Then it's more, all of a sudden she's folded up like a swan. So I would always go in my head, this ballerina, this character, is she a swan or is she a woman? And the people I had admired were really tall and angular, or just angular like Makarova. And I am not. And I always felt like, oh, I have to take it from the womanly aspect of this role. Yet when those movements come into play, it makes it a little, there's a sort of dichotomy in the movement. So I would always get a little like, oh, I don't want to be that character at this point. I don't want to do the swan movements. It doesn't feel true to me. But then maybe I overthought everything too much.
Cynthia, I felt similarly because I felt we only see her on stage as a woman, technically. Like, you never see her until she leaves and you have that big moment where she goes off stage and she's retransforming into a swan. You're never seeing her as a swan in second act. So I also similarly felt very torn because I'd seen all these ballerinas creating these very creature-like shapes, but that didn't resonate with me. And so I wanted to create a more womanly approach. But in order to feel like I could do those steps and could kind of create those swannish things, is I had to think like, okay, how long has she been trapped as this swan? Does she have resonating things that like creep in as a woman? You still feel like, oh, I have this like weird tick as a swan. Yes, you're a woman, but you're trapped as a swan for 4 years, a year, 5 days. That would determine how much swanness would come out of you, right? Or how much more woman you would be. So that really helped me kind of figure out like, oh, okay, am I like, how much swan comes out of me in my womanly state?
Yeah. It does mean that we have to think about those characters. And I don't know if that's evident to the public, and how much in depth we really focus on how to imbue the character with each side of this wonderful, hopeful, vulnerable, and beautiful woman. Isabella, when you have done Swan Lake, have you found any excerpt of Act 2 difficult for you or challenging as Odette?
Steps-wise, that double rond de jambe is always an enormous challenge for me. And I think also just feeling like I can kind of keep the gas up for my entire variation. It's just, I find it so exhausting, that solo. And so to get to the end and just feel that I can like still sustain the level that I want to have, that's probably the most challenging thing. I actually feel much more at home in Odette, both character-wise and physically. For me, a big challenge has been locating the confidence that I need to convey Odile. Just because I get so nervous for Black Swan. And so obviously Odette, she's so sure of herself. And I don't know, in order to like become that seductive character that's completely in control of the situation, I feel like a lot of times it just takes everything inside of me to like, I don't know, try to find that confidence.
Jill, how do you feel about the two characters? Do you have a preference, or are they equal, or is it on the day? How about it?
So I think Odette is more fulfilling and Odile is more fun. Odette definitely does, in my opinion as well, have more texture and depth, and there's so much to dig into, and it's why Swan Lake is one of my most favorite ballets to perform, is because that challenge never stops. It's always fresh, and there's always some other aspect of Odette to explore or to attempt to portray. But yeah, Odile is a lot of fun. I think for me, I'm naturally more introspective, more like Odette. And I don't picture myself as a femme fatale or too much of a troublemaker. So I don't connect with Odile on a personal level as much, but I do find Odile much less challenging on a technical level. As Isabella said, Odette just takes all of my being. Like, I'm so exhausted after that solo. When I get to the intermission before third act, I'm completely wiped out. So second act takes so much energy. And the hardest step for me in the whole ballet is that double rond de jambe. I don't think I've ever done it properly. And the video they did of me when I was 25 is just like the worst.
Don't you wish they would do those things again so you have another chance when you're
I mean, I do think I've gotten better at that step, and so it'd be nice to capture that on video, but it's really funny to hear Bella say that that's difficult because you make it look so easy. And there's so many examples of you make it look easy on Instagram. Like, how is that difficult for you?
The struggle that it takes, like, I don't know.
It's a good thing it's at the beginning, though. At least it's at the start of the solo, so you get it behind you.
Yeah, that's a constant challenge. Although, ironically, I felt like I had a little breakthrough a few months ago, right before, like literally a couple days before we got quarantined. Irina Kopakova was telling me all the tips of how to do that step, and it's very hit or miss for me. And then suddenly things clicked for like a full rehearsal on those double rond de jambes. And then we had one more day, and then we went into quarantine. So
it'll be there when you come back. It'll be there
maybe.
for sure.
Let's hope.
I mean, I always likened the two roles to two different gemstones. I always felt like Odette was more like a pearl and Odile was like a diamond. And in the way of moving, that's how I tried to establish my characters a little bit. Because I also found Odette incredibly hard, physically, incredibly hard. I had a lot of fun with Odile. For me, it was just fun to do, except when you put your hand out and you take it away. But my hand would be shaking so much that they'd have to hold it and kiss their own hand on top because I'd be such a wreck. And you'd think, you know, you'd already done an act. You'd think you'd be a little bit calmer. Not me. So yeah, it's interesting how we take the characters and how to make them your own, to really find the truth in each of them, so that you're not portraying two different people. You're trying to convince Siegfried that you are the same person in some ways or another, even though she's a trick. She's actually von Rothbart's sort of magic trick, von Rothbart's magic trick altogether. And in the versions I've adored myself, Odette and Odile are both wearing white. So it makes it so much easier that you really just have to do it with your body and your eyes and your face, because you're wearing the same costume. And that's always very, very interesting to dance in that regard. Isabella, did you have any experiences with different partners where you feel like they brought different things out of you?
Yeah, I mean, I did notice that, especially with Black Swan, when I would do it with a partner who was sure of themselves, it really helped me to just feel more confident. And then there were other times where I felt like I was dancing with a child or someone that, I mean, it was just a completely different dynamic. Perhaps it brought out a more contemptuous side of Odile. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to feel like you can really achieve your true potential without a great partner and someone that you do have great chemistry with. So when you do find that, it's a gift and it's the best thing ever. But when you don't, you just have to work a lot harder. But, you know, we're actresses, so we do our best.
Christine, who was your first partner?
Well, my first partner was actually James Whiteside at ABT, and I've really only danced with him. And actually this season I was supposed to do it with Tom Forster, and it was supposed to be his debut, and we already started rehearsing together. And I was really excited for him and looking forward to it so much, but you know, it will happen eventually. But yeah, I agree. when I used to dance with James, when you have such a good partner that is experienced and knows what he's doing, it's just, you feel so, I don't know, you feel so good, and you're not as worried, and you know that he's going to take care of you and connect with you. And because when I started working with Tom this year, it was a much different experience, and I sort of had to take the lead and kind of coach him into what he had to do and explain things to him. And I didn't feel as at ease anymore because it was going to be a little more challenging, but it's a different experience, and you learn different things, you know, during those times, and you progress in different ways. So I'm thankful to both.
It can really enhance each character with different aspects of the same ballet. So it's actually not a bad thing, and passing down the tradition of helping others. Who else have you danced with?
I've been very fortunate with partners. I've been partnered with, I think, almost every principal male dancers, from Jose Carreño to Marcelo, David, Corey, Roberto, James, Alex.
Wonderful, my goodness.
And this year was supposed to be Aaron. So we first time dancing with who is junior than me, was going to. But for me, I think I discovered when I had a rehearsal with Kevin, during the part of the rehearsal, Kevin talks about more male aspect of the ballet, which made me think that what I was thinking about ballet is so different than the male prince aspect of it. And that gives me a lot of ideas how I want to approach this role. So these days, since I'm more comfortable with the ballet and the steps, when I have a new partner, we'll just test drive, we'll just go through the ballet, and then we'll actually sit and talk about it. And you know, it may look like we're not dancing and just chatting, but it's so informative. And I think it's most important thing is when you want to tell a story to audience, you both need to have a same story. I think it's very valuable rehearsal time when we actually think about or talk about how we want to dance this. It always changes, depends on the partners. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but we always come to one storyline. So
That's great.
I spend a lot of time talking in the studio.
I'd love to be a fly on the wall. I'd love to see that and be there for that. How do each of you prepare before you go on the day of the show? I mean, we know that there are rules and union rules. You tend to finish by 2:00 on those days, or at least we used to. Is there any special rituals that any of you go through? Bella, do you have a special ritual before Swan Lake performance?
I mean, my main ritual is, I guess take class, rehearse a little bit. I think I'm a little superstitious about that. I have to at least try one thing with my coach. And then eat pasta, try to nap. And then I just, drink coffee, get ready for the show. And then I don't know, I guess one thing that I do that's perhaps, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people do this, but I like to go on stage by myself for as long as possible. Like an hour before is awesome. And just test out my shoes, go through sometimes the entire ballet in my mind and moving around a little bit to get warm. I get so nervous for Swan Lake every single time.
I feel you. I get it. Me too.
It's unavoidable, but the upside of the nerves is it gives you adrenaline, and just this superhuman laser focus on your role.
Gillian, do you have any special, rituals, or do you listen to special music before you go on? Different ballets often, give you that opportunity to put yourself in the mood?
Yeah, I have a couple of favorite mixtapes or MP3s, whatever. But I think I would agree that there's so many nerves to manage. And so the main ritual is trying to just wrangle the nerves, and visualization is a big part of that. So I also need to have a big meal, and I need to have a nap. And then when I wake up, if I was able to go to sleep, which hopefully I was, it's about visualizing positive outcomes. And of course, your mind goes to worst case scenarios. And so I allow myself that for a second. And what would I do? If I land on the floor, I'd get up.
Always good, get up.
Just simple solutions. But to mainly not dwell on anything that's like a spiraling down of why can't I do this show, or all the things that could go wrong, because it's just really not helpful. So there's a lot of like mind control that happens before the show for me, where it's like filtering the fear and the nerves and turning it into excitement and possibility.
Fabulous. What about you, Christine?
Pretty much the same for me. I also agree that I get a lot of nerves before my performance of Swan Lake, and I do also try to manage with them, but sort of do the same thing. I try to take a nap and eat a good meal, and then I try to come pretty early to the theater. I always put on some fun music that I can sing or dance around to. I find it gives me a lot of good energy. I also like to go and check out the stage, try on my pointe shoes, and then just pretty much be as calm and positive as I can be. And I feel like once the performance starts, then your nerves sort of start to ease. And I always found that the core girls always gave me this really good boost of confidence and energy, just knowing that they were going to be out on stage with me and working hard with me and dancing with me. It made me really feel calm inside.
Great. And do you have any special things you go through, or the same thing? I did the same as you girls. I took a nap. I would visualize. Absolutely.
I think I do exactly the same thing. I'll go take class and do 30 minutes rehearsal with the arena, and then I live next to Lincoln Center, which is worth every penny when it comes to the Met season. So I will walk to my home and take a nap, and then wake up. I'm so Korean. My mom always say you need to eat steak. So it kind of became my thing, that eating a steak before the show. So I will eat a big steak. And then I will go to the theater 2.5 hours before. Then I'll put my makeup on. That's my like Zen moment. And then I will get my hair done, and I'll go to the stage and try out the stage and go through the whole ballet in my mind, try something with my body, and then the show.
That's it. Devon, how are you coping with this time off, other than, doing class and trying to stay in shape? Is there anything special that you could offer advice to people who are watching, dancers or students in this time?
Yeah, honestly, it's every day's different. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm trying to accept and be okay that like one morning I'll wake up, and even today, like I woke up super motivated and like did class and did my exercises. And then like halfway through the day, I started to not feel super motivated. And I was just like, I'm trying to just be really accepting of those feelings and like be okay with the fact that I don't necessarily have to be go, go, go all the time. And this is such an unprecedented time, and that we've never experienced something like this. Like none of us have. So we're all in this situation together, and we all I'm just trying to allow myself to feel okay with being either productive or not, and just allow myself to feel those feelings and be really accepting of that, and not beat myself up for whatever I do or don't do, you know, every single day, and just kind of take it day by day, or even hour by hour, like today.
It's very sensible, and it makes, you know, it will free you from guilt of anything that way. Some days you can get things done and some days you can't. And Bella, what are you looking forward to the most dancing when you get back?
I don't know, everything, literally every single ballet. I guess I did feel like, so the last performance that we did was Giselle, and I felt like my Giselle got to a higher like a higher level than I had ever performed it before. But then there were still so many things that I just really want to do better. And so I was really looking forward to continuing to build on that. So maybe, I guess, Giselle. Hopefully we'll do it soon.
That's not a bad one. Gillian, you've danced Swan Lake a lot now. And if there was still one person, dead or alive, that you could be coached by, who would that be? Or Odette, Odile?
Well, Makarova was always a swan queen that I looked up to when I was little, and I actually was fortunate enough to work with her for a couple of rehearsals, and it was really eye-opening. And Susan Jaffe also was a favorite swan queen. She has helped all of us tremendously with her coaching. So people I have not worked with that I would love to work with. Well, Maya Plisitskaya is my father's favorite swan queen, just because he ended up watching a bunch of those videos when I was little, because I was obsessed with all the swan queens, with Makarova and Cynthia Gregory and Plisitskaya. And so he just thought she just came onto that stage and just was so exciting, mesmerizing. So I would have loved to work with her, particularly on Odile.
Yeah.
I think for her to have that much stage presence and charisma on video is really mind-boggling, because things do get lost.
Yeah. The energy passed through this, you know, the fourth wall. It really passed through the screen with her. And she was the one I looked up to, and I couldn't even imagine myself doing it after seeing her as a young girl. Christine, about you. I was coached by Georgina Parkinson for a long, long time in Swan Lake, which was fantastic. Is there anybody in particular with us or without us that you would like to have been coached by?
Yeah, I have to say, Maya Plisitskaya, I would definitely love to get coached by her if that was a possibility. Just to see her approach on it and her thoughts and emotions, just like everything. I'm just so curious, like what she would say or what she would recommend, or like what she thought of when she danced that role. And I would also really like to get coached by Uliana Lopatkina. She is a prima ballerina with the Mirsky. Well, not anymore, I guess, but she had the most beautiful arms and swan lines that I've ever seen. So those two for me.
Stunning. Yeah. Well, ladies, we've come to the end of our time. I just want to say at the end of this that it's been a pleasure speaking to all five of you. Wonderful ballerinas with American Ballet Theater, many more years of Swan Queens in their future. And I'd like to ask that if any of you have the ability to help us, American Ballet Theater's Crisis Relief Fund, please feel free to donate. I'll just say goodbye to my fellow swans. Thank you again.